Hello, welcome to Milestone 1. This is Tom Medlock, and I'm just going to briefly show you the finished product. So you can see I have sped it up a little bit just for testing purposes. You can see that it is moving appropriately. I'm really proud of this because I actually implemented a finite state machine to get this to work. I'll walk through that so you can see that. You can see that all the animations are still at 1 second and they're properly synced up. This is just at like 0.2 seconds just to show that I was able to get this to work properly. So we're going to go here, and I clicked escape. So you can see up here I have deleted all of my managers here. You can see that it is quite a bit being destroyed. Yeah, so it goes through, destroys alien manager, squid, blah, 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 blah. So basically, I wanted to make sure that I was getting these things destroyed before I moved forward, because things were going to get really daunting after a while. So you can see here that there's unload managers. So starting off, I'm going to walk through this really quick. It starts off, you can see all of this is commented out. I still haven't removed it. I'm a little nervous about that, so I just left it for now. But you can see that here it goes. It starts off and it initializes. I wrapped everything in a game manager just so things could be cleaner for our eyes. You can see here that it initializes. It creates the game manager, but it also links the game manager, the game itself, to the game manager so that that can be grabbed from anywhere in the game. Then I go ahead and I initialize the managers. So all of these managers are put in the game manager's initialize managers. So it starts off and it initializes it in the proper order. After that, it goes and loads the managers. So what I did was I created a function in each of the managers that basically loads the individual resources that are necessary. So you can see, I load the sprites. You can see that I also load the batches for the render manager. I load the animations in an animation manager just to wrap that up and make it nice. And then I also have an alien manager that I create to handle the waves, so that that's all handled nice and cleanly. Let's see. Let's take one more look in here. So yeah, I'm just initializing the factories, which is basically like the same thing, where I'm passing in a reserved and a growth size. And then I also create a composite here, and then pass in. Oh no, this is a command for the movement, and then I'm passing in the actual composite that the aliens are attached to, and then I pass it into the time manager, and it's 0.2 seconds, so that you can see that's why they were moving so fast. So if we go back to the game itself, here I am basically creating the grid. So I have the alien manager. I set the grid starting at these coordinates with a x. With an X spread and a Y spread. And then I'm basically setting it here. And then I'm going through and creating alien columns. And then setting it basically where it needs to be. And then this is where I'm setting the right and the left collision until it gets to the wall. Until we have actual collision. I set the speed here, and then you can see that I'm giving the speed to each of the finite state machine states down here, and then let's see. And then I'm spawning the actual grid. So let's just run through this really quick, because the composite was something that I hadn't talked about in the previous PAs. So here I'm creating alien columns, and what an alien column is it is a derived it's a derived class from a composite, and basically spawns these guys. It has 5. And it adds them to the actual composite. And then the thing I'm the most proud of that I spent a lot of time on was the actual movement. I liked how I did that quite a bit. So down here we can see that I have well, let's see. Let's see if we can find this here. Yeah, so I have this wave movement, which is a command, and basically it executes when the time is called, and then it moves the edge, so it updates the individual edge. That's what you could see up there that was changing. And then it does the individual moves, so it calls a P alien wave, which is that composite, and then it tells it to move. And then that iterates through the individual components or composites and leaves, and invokes move on each of them. So if we go to, let's say, the squid, you can see that it has a function called move, and then it calls alien manager move sprite, and basically what it does is it calls the current movement and calls execute on that movement. So you can see here that this is actually part of the finite state machine. And if we go down here, you can see that if we move, let's do move right here, and you can see that executing this with the sprite will set the sprite to set x, get x plus the speed. By the way, all those sprites are proxy sprites. I've shown that in my documentation. It's a little bit extensive. I show that I have that there. So let's get back on track. So in the alien manager, I also have, in the wave movement, then after that, I'm getting the next state. So if we go in here, you can see that I'm doing current movement is equal to the current movement get next state. So if we go down here, just as an example, the get next state will check to see if it's the right edge is greater than the screen width, and if it is, it'll return move down and left, so it'll move down, and then immediately it'll pass the next movement set as left. Otherwise, it'll just return this state, and it'll just keep it up. And you can see that this is only called once every time that trigger is called. So it moves and iterates through each of the aliens, and then it gets the next state, and then it adds itself back to the time manager so that it can keep moving each increment. So that being said, the other thing that I've also implemented since the last PA is factories. We can go down here to, the individual crab factory. And what I'm doing is I'm actually utilizing the list manager, but I'm actually only using the reserved list. So I'm basically calling pop pop reserved list and passing it off. You can't keep it on the active list because that messes up the composite and the component design pattern. So basically I just have a reserved list. And I've created as many of these individual game objects as needed right away on the reserve list. So you can see here that I'm setting a proxy sprite. I'm setting the sprite because I have set sprite up in the game manager with a proxy sprite manager, and I'm adding the proxy and the name of the crab for its creation. So this is created at the beginning, and you can see here that it's basically the same thing as any of the other managers. Basically, it just creates a reserve list. When you want a new one, it pops it off the reserved list, casts it into a proxy sprite, and basically sets the sprite, and then keeps the whole thing going, and then hands it back. So let's see if we can go back to the game. Oh yeah, I also have, the game object manager, the time manager, obviously I have that. Game object manager, basically, it shouldn't be really called, in my opinion, the game object manager. It should be called the update manager, because basically it's responsible for invoking the game object's update. So if we go into here, you can just see it just iterates through and calls update on the game objects that it possesses. And this is just nodes that are pointing to the different game objects. So it just iterates through that. And then down here we have obviously render batch manager, and this is basically the same thing. However, it has that multi-tiered system where it has batches, and then it calls each of the individual batch nodes within the render batches. And in that way, it allows the render manager to render certain batches before others. And this could be useful for things like the UI or certain objects that need to be appearing on top of other objects. So that functionality is totally working. I have that as well in my documentation. And then this was the big, I mean, it wasn't the biggest, but it was a pretty big pain in the butt to get all of these things properly destroyed in the right order. It's the reverse of how they're loaded. And then, you just go in here and you can see that, it announces if there's that compiled if statement. It announces that it's been destroyed, and then it goes through and it, for each of the managers necessary, it destroys the different data structures that it needs to destroy. This was a heavy duty one, the render batch manager, because then it has to go through and it has to destroy the render batch manager nodes, which would be right here. And then in here, he has to destroy his batch. And then in the batch, they have to destroy their individual render batch nodes. So that can be kind of annoying. It took me a little bit of time to, match up my hashes, but I finally did it. So I'm glad I got this out of the way, because this is like, oh my God, I hate this so much. I hate cleaning up after myself in programming. I love creating stuff. I love putting it together, but I hate destroying stuff. So I'm glad that I got that out of the way. And then there's just, some different helper functions for the game manager. So basically that's pretty much it. You can dig through anything else that looks interesting. I got all these UML diagrams right here. And I'm trying to think if there's anything really quickly before, I got, of course, this color manager for the box sprites and whatever. This is just a quick look at my documentation. It is a bit verbose, but I kind of wanted to, get as much as I possibly could in here, because I worked really hard on this and I really wanted it to show. If there's any issues or anything like that, I'd love to hear it. I'd love to hear critique. Other than that, thank you very much for listening. I know this is a little bit long, but you have a good day or night wherever you are. Thank you.